fellow Trek Chatters, I'm Pit Trekkie, and welcome to another episode of Pittsburgh's Trek Chat. So for today's episode, what I'm going to be doing is reviewing Episode 6 of Season 2 of Star Trek Picard, 2 of 1. So the first half of the episode, there are several, it's basically in flashbacks. There's a period at the beginning where it's 34 minutes earlier, then 26 minutes earlier, then 14 minutes earlier. So in these flashbacks, we see at one point Picard is laying on the ground, and then for a couple of the flashbacks, he's actually in a hospital in a bed, and he's being shocked, I guess, to restart his heart. So what we find out is, from the previous episode, Jurati obviously got into the security booth, and she was able to knock out the people in the security booth so she could upload the files for the other crew members so that way they show up when they get scanned in. She knocks them out with some sort of gas, and she's very proud of herself, but she can't, she's stuck in her chair, chained to the chair, and she's kind of inching her way up to try to get there. The Queen said, well, didn't you think about that before you knocked him out? She says, I can help you. Jurati allows it to happen, and the Queen gives her some extra strength so she can break her hands out of the handcuffs. She uploads everybody's profiles. You see Rios and Talon and Picard standing in line. They're finally able to get in. During the party, we see Picard and Talon are watching over Renee. We can tell that she seems visibly upset. She keeps looking at her cell phone. She keeps downing shots. And Talon notices on 2 occasions that she's picking at her ear like this, and she says from knowing her for 24 years that that's a sign that she's in emotional distress. Other issues that are going on right around this time, we see Raffi and Rios are talking. Rios is kind of really happy and seems to be enjoying the real food. He pulls out a real cigar. He seems to actually be enjoying the 21st century, which Raffi notices. And he says, yes, everything's so real, everything's so intense here, the food is really good. And she goes, no, it's been ever since you were in lockup with ICE with that doctor. And he doesn't really necessarily admit it, but his smile's giving his feelings away. Raffi tells him basically, don't get involved in that. He says, I'm trying not to. She said, you don't want to start a relationship out on a lie, and if you're a traveling, time traveler from the 25th century and the 21st century, yeah, that would start a relationship based on lies big time. She also notices that 7 and 9 is really enjoying schmoozing with some of the people at the party, and she basically comments that 7 and 9 seems free without those Borg implants. And that seems to hit Rios. He knows that they care about each other very much, and he gives her a little kiss. But anyway, back to the regular story. At one point, it looks like Renee Picard is getting ready to leave. They notice that Picard and Talon notice that she's on her phone. Talon has a program where she's actually able to connect into Renee's phone so she can actually see what she's doing. And she's actually texting Q, her therapist, saying that she thinks that she can't handle it. And Q's basically saying, exactly, you're not going to be able to handle this. So they realize that they have to intercept her because it's only 10 hours until she has to go into quarantine. So as they're getting ready to intercept her, Picard is actually stopped by Dr. Sung. Obviously he's shocked because, again, he looks like Data, sounds like Data. Sung basically tells Picard, I know your friend Q. I don't know what's going on between the two of you, but I'm telling you right now, stay away from Renee. And Picard says, basically, I'm not going to do that. Sung walks away, and we find out that Sung has actually just made a huge, hefty donation to the Europa mission, so he's basically got VIP status. Some lady asks him what she can do for him, and Sung basically says, you see that guy? Get him out of here. So Picard's trying to get out of the way, and security's obviously watching him and getting ready to surround him. Renee finally gets out and leaves the party, and Rios is actually following her to keep tabs on her. By the way, remember, the crew has some sort of subcutaneous communicators or something installed with them, and they're actually able to stay in touch with each other. At this point, Rios and everybody's saying the mission's in danger. So Jurati, she's kind of been filtering around. She's got the Borg Queen in her head right now because, and I forgot to bring this up in the last episode, but right before the Borg Queen died, she connected her hands to Jurati's cheek, and basically, I don't know if she injected nanoprobes or what she did, but some sort of tubules into her face, which apparently connected her and transferred her into Girardi's brain. So they're basically almost like two people. But it is said that at this point that Girardi is actually the one who's in control, not necessarily the Borg Queen. Well, the Borg Queen decides that she can help Girardi, and Girardi allows for it to happen. So the Borg Queen shuts down all the lights. Everybody's kind of like, what's going on here? And all of a sudden, somebody starts singing, and Girardi comes up at this, I guess, archway on a balcony, and as soon as she starts singing, they put a spotlight on her, and the band seems to know exactly what she's singing and at what tempo and everything. They start playing the music along with her. She starts singing Shadows of the Night by Pat Benatar, and it's enough that it distracts everybody. Picard's able to slip past the security and go toward Renee. At this point, Girardi's bowing, but the Borg Queen is there with her, kind of taking a bow, even though nobody can see her. And she says, I did that because I needed instead of all the stress hormones you're creating, I need the boost of norepinephrine or whatever, I forget what it was called. It was enough to be able to get her to take control over Girardi. And you can tell when that happens because Girardi's pupils become completely black, then flash back to normal. At that point, we don't see any more of Girardi and the Borg Queen for a period. Renee is in tears. She's scared about going up onto the Europa mission. She's thinking back to the test simulator, how she had failed. Picard comes in and is kind of the voice of reason. She keeps saying she's not ready. My fear is telling me is showing me that I'm not ready. Picard basically tells her fear is fear. You don't have to let it run you. You don't have to let it rule you. And she starts to calm down, and she's very relaxed by what he's saying and by his words, and it's enough to get her to the point where she's like, okay, I'm going to go on this Europa mission. And Picard and Renee are walking out of the gala. What they don't realize is Dr. Sung is sitting in his car. He realizes he's got to get rid of Renee, so he drives like a crazy man toward Renee, obviously to hit her, to wipe her out. And Admiral Picard shoves her out of the way and is hit instead. So that's what led to all those flashbacks earlier in the episode. So everybody except Girardi takes her to Teresa's clinic. They said that they can't go to a hospital because he has no ID. So he says, I know a place. So she ends up, they're all in the room. Teresa finally tries to get him back. His blood pressure was destabilizing, his heart was going down. They asked if he had any implants, any artificial organs or whatever, and Raffi basically said all of them. When she uses the defibrillator to shock him back, it works, but it actually destroys the defibrillator, which he's really surprised about. So he's stabilized, but he's in a coma at this point. So everybody walks out. They're talking about their concerns. Teresa says that they can see them. She talks briefly with Rios and kind of asks, who are you? I've never seen anybody with a reaction to that defibrillator like that before. He obviously plays it kind of coy and just really doesn't say where he's from. She walks away, but she does say that all of them can go and see him. So one thing I did not mention was throughout the episode, Picard was having flashbacks, again, back to him and his mom in that safe place, that glass area of the house, the conservatory, I call it, because it reminds me of the conservatory in Clue. And there's at one point during these flashbacks that we see his mother being taken away or pushed away, and it looks like it's his father. But in flashbacks, it almost looks like a monster to some degree. I don't know if anybody caught that or not. Talon is showing, she has this little metal device. It kind of reminds me of the device that Gary Seven used to knock people out in the episode Assignment Earth in the original series. So it might be the same thing, I don't know. But anyway, she's using it and showing like a hologram of his brain. And his brain is firing, although almost like he's got all this anxiety and he's in fight or flight. But nobody can make sense of that because he's actually in a coma and his brain activity should be near zero. So Talon says she can use her device to go into his mind and try to help him out and figure out what's going on. Raffi is very upset about that. She feels that that's unacceptable, that it's going to cause damage to Picard and it's not going to help him. The others, 7 and 9, Rios, they all say if she has the ability to do this, we need to do this. Time is ticking. We don't know what's happening at this point with Renee because of what happened. After that, then we have a little segue to we see Corey Sung. And Dr. Sung comes in completely distracted, completely a mess about what has gone down. He's kind of talking in riddles, basically saying, you were what I needed to work for. You're my everything that I've done everything in my life for. And she's not making sense about this whole thing. And he kind of talks about taking out the collateral, which we know is Picard instead of Renee herself. He goes away. Corey then ends up going to his big thing at computers, Googles his name, and starts noticing things like that he's a mad scientist, that he lost his ability to practice because he was practicing eugenics on the soldiers, which we learned a couple episodes back, and that he wasn't able to continue that work. Then she goes into some sort of video record of him with several different kids with different names. At first she thinks it's herself, and she's like, "Why? I don't remember these pictures. Why is this happening? What is this?" And then he starts talking about different girls' names, and she's like, "Who are these people?" And he starts talking about how these other girls died, and he's talking about one last girl that he's going to devote everything in his life to resolving the genetic issues. And he mentions her name. And she said, "What am I? What did you do?" And kind of segueing back real quick to the whole thing with Picard and being unconscious. The episode basically ended with 7 and 9 saying, "We don't know what's going to happen here. We have to protect Renee. We're running out of time. We have to get Picard conscious to help us." And they said, "Who knows what else could happen?" And while this is being said, the Borg Queen inside Girardi's body is walking the streets of Los Angeles. So that's where the episode ends. I really enjoyed this episode, so I'm looking forward to talking about some of the likes that I had. I love that we're learning a little bit more about the supervisors, about how they have no physical connection with their people that they're sworn to protect. I never really knew that before. I don't know if that ever came up with Gary 7 before, because remember in that episode he was trying to protect a mission rather than actually protecting a single person. And he had to be in contact with a lot of people during that mission. But what we're learning is that these long-term supervisors don't actually physically have connection with their people. They watch them and protect them from the sidelines. The other thing that I really enjoyed, I love seeing Rios and 7 of 9 happy, and how that keeps coming up. I love that Rios has got some budding love going on, which is kind of interesting in its own way. It's kind of awkward because Girardi's still around, and he and Girardi actually had that scene where they were talking about their relationship kind of briefly. He talked to her and told her about how much he cares about her, or he wants to make sure that she's all right. I don't know if she necessarily wanted to kiss him or if she did, but the Borg Queen made Girardi grab Rios' tie and pulled him in for a kiss, and it kind of shocked both of them. But I like the fact that Rios is happy with this person. He's very impressed with the fact that she built this clinic from the ground up and has actually got such warmth and such caring inside of her that she actually works with people who have nothing, who can't pay, who are illegals. She does what she needs to do because they're humans and she wants to make sure that they're okay. So I really enjoy that. I also like seeing 7 of 9, even though 7 of 9 wasn't really the arc of this story, she just kind of was there. But seeing 7 of 9 really happy for the first time, being freed of her Borg implants, people treating her as human instead of just some cybernetic, relic of their enemies. It was a perfect tie back to the very first episode of Season 1, where 7 was on board the La Sirena as a Fenris Ranger, and that one criminal was saying, "Come here with your pretty Borg face," stuff like that. So that obviously hinders 7 of 9 and really impacts her emotionally. So seeing her free for one of the first times is actually a real delight to see. I am not going to deny this. My favorite part of the episode was Dr. Girardi singing. Something I really enjoy about when the Star Trek characters sing. As a side note, that doesn't mean I want a musical episode. I think that would be kind of bringing Star Trek down. I don't think it needs a musical episode. But I like that when characters sing from time to time. And I will say that Allison Pill, or Dr. Girardi, actually, she looks very beautiful in her dress. I'm not saying anything inappropriate. Not at all. I just think she looks very beautiful dressed up in a nice dress with some makeup on, instead of her, you know, like we've seen in the last several episodes with her lab coat on. She kind of looks strung out. I mean, she looks really good. So that's not anything inappropriate. I'm just saying I think she looks very beautiful in the episode and in the dress. And I love the song. I didn't realize that was a Pat Benatar song. I thought that was a more recent song until I heard what it was, and then I remembered what the song was. I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, that's from the 80s. So that's really cool. That is one thing that I love about current Star Trek is it's not just where everybody in the 24th or 25th century is listening to Mozart or other classical music and reading Shakespeare. That always bothered me, and I like the fact that we even saw that a little bit in Discovery, and we're seeing it here in Picard, that we're actually seeing traditional music, you know. So I really liked that part of it. I like that the Borg Queen is inside of Girardi, that she's kind of partially assimilated. They're kind of like, there's like the yin and yang of each other. One's good-hearted and caring. The other one, you know, is malicious and out for herself. And the fact that we see this merge together and seeing them walking to get basically one-on-one at the end of the episode, it's kind of like, what's going to happen here? So that'll be very, very interesting. I love that the OV-165 shuttle from the opening credits of Star Trek Enterprise was actually kind of explained. We saw it up in the ceiling. She told Admiral Picard how much she loves that shuttle because she loves the aerodynamics of the fins of the engines. It kind of reminded me of in the second episode of season 5 of Star Trek Voyager. I can't remember the name, but it was the one where they decided to design and build the Delta Flyer, and Tom Paris actually wanted those aerodynamic fins to come out from the engine wings that were down like this, and Tuvok basically said, no, that's ridiculous, forget it, and Tom kind of acquiesced to that. But that's kind of what that scene reminded me of. Also seeing Picard so kind and loving with his ancestor, and just how a few calming words and reassurance about you don't have to be a slave of your fear. I thought that was very touching, and I thought that was great that she finally got a little bit of confidence to say, you know what, I'm going up on that Europa mission. I thought that was wonderful. And again, like I said in my last episode, me being a therapist and fighting for people and helping them with their mental health issues and trying to get them to realize they're more than what they have. And I tell that to my clients all the time. You're more than your anxiety. You're more than your fear, you know, and that kind of hit close to home with me with what I try to do here in my office on a daily basis. So those are some of the basic likes that I had of the episode. There really weren't a whole lot of dislikes. Some kind of questions. I didn't really understand how Corey just kind of randomly had access to all of Dr. Song's computers. If he was protecting her and never telling her about the past experiments that he's had and didn't want her to know about herself and what he's doing for her, why would he just walk out of the room and just not protect his computers under a password or something? You're telling me that she just randomly had access to all those computers and just randomly la-di-da-di-da with the mouse, just doing random clicks in Google and found all this bullshit out? That just didn't sit well with me. I thought that was kind of sloppy on the writer's part. I thought they should have at least had it where she was having a hard time getting in with some sort of encryption and somehow something miraculous happened and she figured out the password. That I didn't really like. Trying to think, the other thing I didn't like, it wasn't really so much a dislike, it was more just kind of a question mark, and other fans had it also, but Dr. Girardi started just randomly singing. Security didn't realize this was the woman they had in their room at one point. I mean, granted, she knocked out those security guards, and maybe some of the other ones didn't see it, but out of nowhere she just starts singing, and they just quickly figure out how to put a spotlight on her, and they just absolutely happen to start playing the song at the same tempo, the same speed. They knew exactly where she was going. Everybody was on the same page at the exact same second. I thought that was a little odd. But then I sat back to myself and said, they do that in movies and TV shows all the time. Music just happens to start when somebody's singing a cappella. So, hey, whatever. It didn't ruin the scene for me. It was just kind of like a huh kind of moment. But otherwise, I loved that scene. Okay? The other dislike I have, and it's kind of funny, is the episode was actually kind of short. It was only 38 minutes and 51 seconds this time around. I love it when they give us at least 45 minutes. Some of them go a little bit longer. Some have gone a full hour. Some have gone a little over an hour, depending on Discovery or Picard, whatever episodes. I just thought it was a little bit short. I would have loved a little bit more time, but I guess they didn't really need a whole lot for the gala episode. So overall, I didn't have any major dislikes, just the one major one. So some of the questions that I have in this episode going into the next one. Why does Q need Dr. Sung to kill Renee? You know, again, I talked a little bit about this in the last episode. We all know that there's something going on with Q that we don't really know about yet. It's just odd that this omnipotent being needs Dr. Sung to take her out at this point. Kind of like, almost like Q has to put himself in the role as the Renee's therapist to convince her that her fear is genuine and that she shouldn't go up. So I really want to know, we only have, 4 more episodes of the season. I really hope that they don't just let this drift, that they actually really kind of tie it all together as to why Q just can't eliminate Renee himself. And I think we'll get that, I'm just not sure. Another one, this is just basic, but why did Talon and Laris look so much alike? Picard obviously keeps calling her Laris, and he mentioned the fact that she's Romulan and that he didn't think that meant that she was some sort of ancestor. But really, you never know. Maybe Laris has like 1/8 or 1/16 or 1/32 Romulan in her. We don't know. We don't know what we're going to find out yet. And I didn't recognize this, but what I do in preparation for these review episodes is I watch the episode at least twice, and I also print out the review of the episode on Memory Alpha so that I can jog my memory or in case I missed something. Well, apparently at one point, Laris was looking at something very early on in the episode when they were lined up, and she actually swears under her breath in Romulan. I did not catch that either time, so I thought that was very interesting too. Could that be a little clue that was planted in that she's got some Romulan, that she's going to eventually be an ancestor of Laris? Let's see. Another one that I thought was very interesting is, why didn't the security notice that Picard and all them were talking to themselves amongst each other? It was very obvious that it happened. Jurati got caught very quickly at the end of the last episode talking to herself and was instantly taken to security. But yet we saw Picard talking to himself, we saw Rios talking to himself, we saw Jurati continue to talk to herself. 7 and 9 and Raffi may have been, I don't know. The only thing that I can really think of is that Picard, when he was talking, a lot of times he was with Talon, so it looked like they were just talking with each other. Rios was with 7 and Raffi, so that was probably missed a lot. But there were parts in the episode where Rios was following Renee and he was completely by himself. But again, maybe there were no cameras in that particular area where in the hallway with all the ships and all the Apollo uniforms, things like that. That's a possibility. But Jurati continued to talk to herself throughout most of the episode, obviously talking to the crew, but also talking to herself with the Borg Queen in her head. Another thing that also came up is this the same Borg Queen that we've seen all the way back since First Contact? My assumption always is that the Borg Queen in First Contact died, and so the one that we saw in Voyager was a new queen. And then she died in the final episode of Voyager, so I assume this queen is a unique queen. I can't exactly remember the line of dialogue what the Borg Queen said, but I think what it was she said something about missing Locutus being a part of her. And I kind of thought that was odd, considering the Borg Queen that was around when Locutus existed was the one in First Contact who died. So what? Is there some ability that she has that she's able to leave her body at the moment of death and transmit herself back to the Delta Quadrant and get into a new body? I don't know. So, but that's kind of what it assumed, it seemed like it was being assumed in the episode. So I already talked about how did the band know to play Girardi's song, and why does he keep flashing back to Picard, flashing back to his mother, and this abuse? How does that tie into this whole overarching season? I know that the mother in the episode 1 was saying about look up, and the Borg Queen on the Stargazer said the exact same thing. Obviously there's going to be some sort of meaning there, because we've seen snippets of it in almost every single episode, whether it was flashbacks or he's mentioned his mother throughout the episodes. What on earth is going on with that? I'm very curious to see what that's going to turn into. So basically, that's my review of episode 6 of season 2 of Star Trek Picard. I'd love to know what your thoughts were about this episode and what you think might be coming in this week's episode, which premieres tomorrow. You can follow my channel here on YouTube. Go to youtube.com/Pittsburgh's Trek Chat, or just type that into the search engine. You can follow the show on Facebook, facebook.com/Pittsburgh's Trek Chat. You can also follow the show on Twitter at PGH Trek Chat. I'm looking forward to the next episode. Until then, may yins live long and prosper.